Welcome to 5 Digital Asset Security Risks Someone Should Have Warned Me About, and the stories you need to hear so you can learn to avoid them now. My name is Todd DeCapua. I wanted to go ahead and share this session with you as I'd recently presented it at a very large security conference, but I think it's critical and the timing couldn't be better to be able to get these ideas out so that you could mitigate these risks now and be prepared in the very near future. A few of the discussion points that I'm hoping to cover with you today. Wanted to provide you with a quick background and a story. Also, look at what are some of these digital assets that you may be seeing or not seeing in your environment today. Also, look at 5 digital asset security risks, and then provide a little bit of a wrap up. So, as we move to this quick background and a story, one of the things that I wanted to share is I've come up as a developer, as a program leader, as a director of technology, leader of people. And the thing that I have found interesting is as I've worked through a lot in performance engineering, I've continuously seen the correlation of security as well. And one of the things that I've done in my career is consciously made a shift to spend some time in security. Well, what that's enabled me to do is gain some additional insights and perspective, and as well as learnings that I can apply and also share. So that's kind of a very quick background and kind of where my journey has taken me. The other pieces here that I wanted to share is things like SSL certificates. They're out there. You may or may not know how they are managed. This very specific story was for a smaller web-based application. We were getting ready to host a very large customer conference and getting ready to launch something called Software Insights. And as we were coming into our customer advisory board, one of the things that ended up happening was we had some SSL certificates expire, and they were actually expiring as I was flying out to this conference. Upon landing, I was notified that our application was not working and some additional research would need to be done. So, again, I needed to dig in, start looking around at some of these AWS servers and see where things were going wrong. Quickly to find out that, in fact, it was a certificate that had expired, and my infrastructure team thought that those were the development servers that we ended up not using, not the production servers that were actually hosting everything. So again, very simple thing like an SSL certificate, an experience that I had had, and caused a bit of short-term stress. But we did get a new certificate. We did implement it, get it installed, so that when we held this customer meeting on Sunday morning, that we were able to have everything up and running. The second one here you can see is the Syrian Electronic Army. This is a story that I love to tell. It highlights how some of the organizations out there today are looking to do things like take over your domain. This was the Wall Street Journal. This was also the Syrian Electronic Army. They were able to take over the wallstreetjournal.com for a period of time and control that domain, sending users to wherever they had wanted to. The third bullet here, you can see revenue, brand, customer, and competitive advantage. So these are kind of 4 areas that I often look at. And as you share these ideas with people, um, these 5 ideas of your digital assets and some things that you can do, I often like to bring it back to the business value. So, what is the impact to revenue of any of these types of um, impacts, or technology breaches, other security risks that lie out there with your digital assets. Um, Brand, what happens to your brand? How about customer attraction and retention? And then also from a competitive perspective, how are you positioning yourself differently than your competitors in the marketplace today? So, again, just a quick background, some stories, and reflection points on how I would suggest we want to look at this. Next, what are your digital assets? So again, we're going to speak a little bit about digital asset security. I think it's important that we first define, maybe what are some of these digital assets that we could start to look at and speak about today. So you can see them laid out here first with domain management and strategy. Again, many organizations that I have worked with have thousands of domains in their domain portfolio. How are they managed? What is your strategy around your management of those domains? Often, this is an area of opportunity. Number two, online brand protection. So when we spoke about potential brand impact to your organization or other organizations in your space, what is it you can do to protect your brand? Much of this is through automation, through big data, through some analysis. Oftentimes, you'll see artificial intelligence built into it as well. But again, what is it that you can do to protect this digital asset called the online brand protection? Some other areas: DNS services and analytics. This is kind of the backbone of many of your digital assets, is the DNS that it is running or operating on. Many of you may be familiar with some of the larger DDoS attacks. We're seeing an increased frequency and size of these. These are then directly impacting those DNS services. So thinking about that as a digital asset and how are you able to proactively manage that is another critical area. Number four, SSL certificates. So I told you my story. Um, and as you think about your organization, there's several different types of SSL certificates. There's also a variety of ways that organizations are managing SSL certificates today. So, a very scary area, something I would highly recommend you asking a lot of those right questions to understand a bit more about how SSL certificates are being managed in your organization. The fifth one that I've laid out here is social media username registration and management. So, even something as basic as your organization is getting ready to do some new marketing campaigns or launch some new products. Are those social media usernames even available? Or the things like that that are available? How is it that you are registering these? How is it that you are managing these? Who has access to them? Who is that voice for your organization? So again, these are kind of the five digital assets I thought would be great to touch on right now. And again, this is what I had shared previously at a very large security conference. Um, as we look at each one of these different digital assets, there's three different ways that we can think about this and approach them. So one is being able to consolidate and secure your digital assets. A second being monitor for threats and enforcing your rights. And then lastly is being able to optimize and promote your digital portfolio. So we could look at each one of these independently. For today, I want to spend some time really focusing on optimize and promote your digital portfolio. I think it's critical that we do look at the first two. However, for today, we just need to focus on optimize. Many organizations have kind of over the years accumulated a variety of these digital assets. Again, whether we're talking about your domain management and strategy, or online brand protection, or DNS services and analytics, or SSL certificates, or the social media username registration and management, really these kind of things take on their own um, personas, and every organization's a little bit different. Maybe within the group that you work in, they're managed a certain way, but in another organization, it's managed a completely different way. So as you think about these digital assets across that enterprise, how is it you can optimize them, and how is it that you can promote that digital portfolio? So as a reminder, these are the five um, areas or focus points that we can look at today around optimizing and promoting your digital portfolio. For our video right now, let's focus on domain management and strategy. So as we look at domain management and strategy, there's a few things, and you can see I've outlined some of my speaking points here and specific areas that I wanted to share. But there's a lot of different ways that you could take this from a direction perspective. This is what, over the years, I've seen and accumulated as really how to first address domain management and strategy as it would relate to digital asset security risks. And again, this being number one in the list of five that we had looked at. But how is it that you can start to analyze your digital portfolio and your digital brands? Really starting to get a feel for what are they, where do they lie, again, who's managing them, who's accountable for them, but analyzing how they're performing. As we then look down into identify what are those high impacts, what are those high risk domains. Again, it could be tied specifically to one of your main or leading brands. We had talked a little bit about revenue. Oftentimes organizations can quickly point to, from a domain management and strategy perspective, it's easy for us to identify these high impact and high risk domains because it's tied directly to where the larger share of revenue is coming from. It's also important that we don't forget about the social media usernames to be able to register and or recover them. So there's some legal aspects out there to help you as well from a brand protection perspective. But again, how is it that building into that domain management strategy, we're already starting to think about that social media username aspect and being able to register them as well as being able to recover those usernames specifically. Prepare. So taking a data driven domain strategy, customizing it to your brand's needs. The last thing that you want to have happen is have it be one or two key people in your organization, maybe somebody from your legal team and someone from your marketing team, that say, well, the way that we're going to manage and drive the strategy for our domains is, the two of us are going to work together and we're going to tell you what's important. That's the way we're going to drive that domain strategy. Highly recommend being able to, again, focus on this data driven domain strategy. Also pulling in, what is that focus? Where is the mission of that organization? What are some things that we want to do proactively? What are some things we want to do defensively? But having that data-driven domain strategy will help you to make this more informed business decisions related to your domain management and strategy. As you then move into step four here, you can see manage your domain portfolio. So this becomes what sounds seemingly interesting and simple to something that can, and I've seen it become very challenging for organizations, especially if you skip items one, two, or three, or a few of them. But being able to then manage your domain portfolio, again, there's typically not an identified role or specific person in an organization that does this domain management. So again, very important area to spend some time on. As we think about optimize, again, how is it you're optimizing that performance of your domain portfolio and return on investment? So, making these investments in domain names in itself is not extraordinarily expensive. Typically, there are some that are very expensive, of course, but you know, being able to show the results that we've appropriately managed not only our brand's needs, but also looking at portfolio performance as it would relate to the return on the investment that we've made in domain names, as well as our overall strategy in managing domains. And that is where there may be some legal and some marketing components that need to be built in. Lastly, examining how your domains will impact your key digital channels. So again, there's many different digital channels depending on where your brand's needs are and where you are right now in the way that you develop your sales strategies, your go-to-market strategies. All of these other aspects will very much play into how these domains will impact your key digital channels. But it's critical that you have that conversation as well. So again, as we think about these digital asset security risks, specifically looking at domain management and strategy, these are the 6 points that I would want to cover to make sure that you were already thinking about them and being able to share these ideas with others. So, as we look to wrap up this conversation around digital asset security risks, the five risks which we walked through at the beginning, spend a little bit of time, focusing on these in this video. Yeah, but thinking about domain management and strategy, thinking about the online brand protection, DNS services and analytics, SSL certificates, social media username registration and management. Really, what I want to do is give you the conversation points, the discussions to be able to take this forward and say, right, we need to focus a little bit more on online brand protection. What are those conversations that I need to be having? Why is it important to our business? Is it, tied into our brand? Is it tied into revenue? Is it, how about your customer attraction and retention or competitive advantage? What are those elements and why has this become very important for your customers and for your business? So again, as we kind of wrap up, want to bring it right back to these 5 points, and hopefully you're feeling a bit more informed so that you can have those types of discussions and start the dialogue, because these are, I believe, the five largest digital asset security risks that exist today, and having these conversations will increase the awareness and reduce the risk across many organizations around the world today, hopefully making for a much better experience for all of us as customers and consumers of various products and services from a number of organizations just like yours. So, with that, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time to listen a little bit. Hopefully, you've been able to learn. I would ask that whatever you have learned today, that you also share these. I'm fairly active on Twitter, as well as a number of other social media sites. You can see that my handle is appperfeng, so that's standing for Application Performance Engineering. Would also encourage you go to our website of effectiveperformanceengineering.com. Was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to author a book with O'Reilly Media titled Effective Performance Engineering, and they have offered electronic copies of that as a free download from this site. So, again, thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you a little bit more about five digital asset security risks and some of the stories and things that you can be doing today to help protect you and your organizations. Thanks again.